Okay, so first up we have Suan. So yeah, this is looking good. It's a very clean and clear drawing. It's really good that in this second pass you started to kind of flesh out, the three-dimensional shapes of the face to work that out a little bit more. I think the accessories are nice. An area I might consider working on a little bit more is a little bit more of the shape to the legs, giving a little bit more sense of a clear kind of butt, thigh, and knee. And it's especially important to have something kind of indicating the areas where the joints are, like having a sense of a little bit of a kneecap and bend behind the knee, and things like ankles. So anywhere something bends, it's good to have kind of an indication of that in the shape of the character. I'm When I look at this here, the feet seem to line up, the belt seems to line up, and then the shoulder does, but somehow the head doesn't quite line up in the side view to the front view. So you might want to adjust that. It may be a quick change in Photoshop. It's good to just draw those horizontal lines just to make sure everything matches up when I look at this one. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not too far off. I don't know. Right now this chin looks higher from this point of view. So anyways, add those lines and sort of double check things. Yeah, the hat doesn't quite line up at the top in that view. So, get those to line up a little bit more. It will pay off when you start modeling. But anyways, this is very good work. It's a good model for this class. You'll want to do the vest will looks like it should be a separate model, especially because of the collar. Looks like there's a t-shirt under the vest which could either be modeled or painted on, and the pants and boots again could either be I wouldn't bother modeling legs underneath these pants. It wouldn't really make sense because you'll never see those legs separate from the pants. So I would just make that one continue. I mean, guess what my suggestion is? Do the whole body as one thing. Maybe model the boots separately or just paint them on. But model the only thing that needs to be modeled separately for sure is the vest, belt, and then other accessories like the little hammer and hat and goggles and stuff like that. Hair. But the rest of it maybe could just be one consistent unibody. And yeah, good job. I think, yeah, you're ready to get going on this for the most part. Nice work. Next we have Sebastian. Yeah, so it's a good looking character. Definitely got some anatomy to work with, which is good. The arm length is inconsistent left to right, but we're really just going to model one half and then duplicate it over, so it's really not a big deal, but I guess you'll want to decide if you want the shorter arm or the longer arm. And yeah, the shoes look good, the shorts look good. I would do the shorts as a separate model that sits on top of that. Um, One thing about stuff like a smile, you should start out the facial expression when you model it in a more neutral pose. So typically mouth closed or just a tiny bit open and a neutral position rather than a big smile. Um, so yeah, I mean, you can have like a fairly wide mouth just to make sure it can get into a big smile like that. The placement of his nipples looks odd, just the way they're kind of way out to the corner, so I might move those in a little bit. Um, but yeah, I mean, it looks like you put some good effort to this, and for the most part, it looks good and very usable and kind of unique and a lot of character to it. So it's a good job on this, and yeah, for the most part, this should work well. Next up is Todd, who's got two different designs. The Space Ranger X and War Knight. Um, I think either of these could work. It looks like you settled on Space Ranger X, so let's focus on that one. Um, can we zoom in on this a little bit? It's not great. Okay, so yeah, I think this is good. I think, in the front, you'll always want the feet facing forward rather than out like that. And here you'll want them, real straight horizontal there. I think for you and really for everyone, you'll benefit from a drawing of the hand from above. You can also just find some photo reference for that. If you prefer, or either if it's more stylized, definitely do a drawing. But yeah, I think it's got some good character. I've noticed that you're thinking about the shoulders there, which is good. Um, I think that you would benefit from a more detailed drawing of the face, maybe from a couple different angles. This leaves kind of a lot to the imagination, which you will have to then come up with when working in 3D. And my bias is that it's better to try and make these more creative decisions as far as you can with drawing, just because you can work much faster with a quick drawing and get feedback and make good decisions. I like the angular shape of the body. It's nice and stylized. I think this is an example where you don't necessarily need to build the whole body and then put clothes on top of it. I think the jacket could be one continuous piece, and the pants maybe kind of overlapping underneath into a little bit of the torso, but you don't necessarily have to build the whole torso. It could be another piece, and then the neck and head its own piece, and then the hands and the arms going partway into the sleeve. So the point is, you don't necessarily need to build a whole big seamless body underneath this. You can separate those out. Um, but yeah, good luck. Notice some. Just draw those horizontal lines to check the top and side. Like his fin, it's a little different in here. So the height of the waistline. Just some of these stuff don't look like they quite line up. So put in those horizontal lines and kind of make sure stuff lines up correctly. You could use like a transform tool or something in Photoshop, or you can play around with the liquify tool too to kind of push things around if you need to. You don't necessarily have to redraw it, is my point. You can just fix it in Photoshop. But it would be good to have everything lined up. It's close now. It's quite close, but some things look a bit off. Like that waistline looks higher here than there. And anyway, but yeah, really good drawing. And I think again, the hands and face, I think, is where you'll benefit from having more detail thought out in advance. Next up, we have Falco. Um, let's take a look. It's a nice drawing. It's good that you've done the kind of shading and a lot of detail. I think that you've created some challenges for yourself with this skirt. The best way to do that, something like that, is going to be with cloth, which we will not cover in this class. So I might consider a design that well didn't include those flaps or made them much shorter, which will make them a little less problematic. Um, but as they are, it's just there's no easy way to rig that. Um, I really like this line drawing of the boots. That's really nice. You also have created some challenges with just a lot of kind of layered clothing and accessories. So you do the belt and the vest and the grommet holes and the lace and lacing and the gloves, and so it's not that none of that can be done. It all can be done. It's just that it's sort of a whole extra layer of work. So I think, move forward and then just be thinking about, as you're progressing, you might think about simplifying some. Shorter hair is always better and easier. We won't be doing full hair in this, so the thing to do is just kind of break it up into sort of chunks, sort of simple shapes. Like, this is one shape, maybe that's a shape, maybe that's a shape, that's, into big pieces, and then that's usually a good way to handle that. But yeah, keeping it shorter, and then you don't have to either rig or animate the hair too much, and just have it move around with the head. It will be better for this class. But it's what's clear is that you put a lot of time and effort to it, and it's a good-looking character. I think maybe the face from the front is looking good. Maybe another pass at the side view, kind of thinking a little bit more about the lips and eyes and stuff might be helpful. You can also, do a drawing without the hair just to kind of really settle on the skull shape, and work some of that out. But yeah, really good drawings. But just think of simplifying anything that's sort of long and dangling, like hair or skirts, is essentially beyond the scope of the class. Doing hair or cloth is sort of a project on its own. It's all possible and doable, but we cover so much in this class already. It's just one complication that we don't include. So, yeah, look to simplify those for sure, and then consider simplifying some of the other parts of the design of the clothing as you move forward. Yeah, I didn't open up this facial studies. These are very cool looking. Um, Yeah, so like it looks like from this point of view, you've really worked out the detail in the face, which is great. I mean, it's not symmetrical. Again, that's not a big deal, except that it looks like it's maybe not perfectly looking straight forward. But anyways, the thing is, you'll be modeling one half and mirroring it over anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But what you might want to do is kind of slice what you think is the best half of the head, and then if you need to make any little tweaks on it, do that, and then that's what you can model from. Um, yeah, and then these ears are kind of crazy and cool, but again, in the spirit of simplifying, I might go with something more like that, where you won't have to deal with all that extra detail. But yeah, very nice drawings. Next up is Stephanie. Um, yeah, good character. It's got some, cartoony style, um, and some good, just clean, clear shapes. Like I was mentioning, you can clearly see where the knee is, where the hips are, shoulder, elbow. That's all real nice. I think you might end up just texturing on those buttons, but or you could put model them either way. Um, I think that yeah, I mean overall this should work quite well. I think some of the feet seems this front view doesn't you'd want these flat on the ground when you're modeling from the front, and that's looking a little odd the way that's drawn. So you might end up just using maybe get some photo reference of feet and shoes you like, but it's looking good from the side. I think yeah, the you got a pretty stylized look here with the face, which is good, but maybe another sketch just to kind of work out some of, nose and lips and those kinds of things, or maybe like us do a little face study from a three-quarter view might kind of help you out. Um, but overall, this looks very good and very usable. You've kept the clothes pretty skin tight, which is good, and makes things simpler to do. And yeah, this should work well. Next up is Sean, and yeah, really nice, clean work here. Very clean, clear shapes, good to model from. Very good, sort of cartoony, appealing style to it. Um, the to me the proportions, I guess it's okay, but I don't know. I just at a first glance the arms look a bit short when she has such long legs, and the distance between the hip and the knee looks long when compared to the knee to the ankle. So I might sort of move the knee up a little bit. Um, but again, yeah, just really good drawing, really good, clean, clear character, very symmetrical in this drawing, which is shows a lot of care in the work. Take a look at the side view. Yeah, again, good, clean, clear work. I don't know if the knee is at the same height here. It still maybe looks a little low. Um, and again, if that's a stylistic choice, that's fine. But for the most part, she looks like pretty realistic human proportions. So, um, anyways, that's just as a quick impression. I'm not comparing it to actual reference, so that might be good to compare it to reference. But yeah, really good, clean, clear shapes. I mean, this is just the right thing that you'll be wanting to work on. You can even see the skull shape here, or the back of the skull, which is very good, and some pretty clear lines to work out the different facial features. So yeah, I think either doing a little hand from above or getting some photo reference will be helpful for the hand. But yeah, apart from that, this is looking good. Next up is Steven, and guess let's start with this one. Definitely good job with making sure it's consistent front and side. You've got all those lines in there. Um, got big mittens over the hands. I think that what you run into with this kind of his like kind of big clothes with a lot of wrinkles into it is to get those ultimately to deform the way you would want them to would be again another sort of cloth thing. It's very doable to you can still model this and not use cloth and it'll work. It just things won't look as kind of like fabricy as it looks like you're going for in the drawing. Um, it might be good to do a sketch of another pass at the face and head without the hat on because I'm imagining you'll model the whole head and then model the hat separately. Um, and this is another sort of dangling thing, and because there's just two of them, if you're up to the additional sort of rigging and animation, it's not that big of a deal, but it will be something to have to you know cope with. Um, and so it's additional rigging and additional animation if you're going to have those. So I guess I think that I would cut those dangling things, just because there's enough to deal with without them. Um, and yeah, maybe just the I think maybe another little study on the face from another angle. The nose looks not that childlike. I think but again, sometimes it's just drawing style versus actual model. But um, and yeah, I mean it's real. You've got child proportions going on. So, and you could, if you wanted to, push the stylization, you could even go bigger on the head, which exaggerates the sort of childlike and cute proportions. And I think these are really the same. So, oh, we're just seeing it without the lines, which is good. Yeah, I think just maybe an extra drawing of the face to sort of figure out some of the shapes, like maybe a three-quarter view would be interesting and helpful to you. Um, I think that the big mittens should be fine. It'll sort of limit to some extent what you can do with the hands, but this doesn't worry me too much. I think this will be okay. You'll just kind of stick with the whatever the neck does, and then the body will kind of twist and bend behind it. And then if you could add some additional joints in here if you want to add a little sway or bend to it here and there, but that shouldn't be too worrisome. Yeah, so good work on this. So next up, we've got Cameron, who is talking about doing a sort of Android type character, and I think that for the way this is looking as just totally normal, you know, just a human proportion thing is you might want to just get some photo reference and model from that because the clothing is skin tight anyways, so there's not much to do there, and you can just get an adult female photo reference and then use that as reference. One good place for reference is 3D.sk. It just has massive library of human photo reference, and I think you can get some for free. Or anyways, poke around. I think they might give you some for free. I'm not sure, but or just getting one probably isn't too expensive. But this is good because they really make a point of giving you a lot of good, clean, clear photos. Front, side, and lots of other details that are great to model from. So several other students mentioned the hair, and yes, I second what they say. Let's stay away from these long things. It's too much rigging work. I feel like the this kind of flat top here. I don't know. I kind of feel maybe that's tall enough. I don't know. Maybe it needs to go a little higher. And then the question you're left with is, does she ever take the helmet off? If yes, then you'll need to model the whole head. If no, you can just model this facial area and then that as a separate hard surface thing. I think that the visor helmet thing could use another, maybe a more detailed pass, and use again. You might find some interesting photo reference from that of something similar, whether it be a futuristic looking motorcycle helmet could give you ideas for details, or different sort of racing goggles or VR visors, or I don't know, poke around and see if you have stuff that'll help inspire you with kind of some of the shapes and details. This idea, I think, is it's just challenging, and I think that if you're going to do it, something like that, then a drawing like this will not suffice. And again, it is the kind of thing you could just get photo reference for, is, find joints on real robots and get the photo reference for that and just model that in. One thing I'll have to say though is that rigging robots is deceptively difficult. One might think it was easier since the robot parts aren't themselves bending and deforming, but sort of somewhat ironically, that makes things harder because if it's it's a human body and its skin, things are kind of forgiving. They can change shape, they can bend and squeeze and stretch and those kinds of things. Whereas typical robot parts with sort of gears and parts that fit together are not forgiving, and each part has to maintain its sort of integrity and work, actually kind of work with the other parts. So it's more difficult than you might think. So what I would recommend is leave that as sort of a nice to have and just focus on like a good body model and a good kind of visor helmet thing, and then see where you're at there, and we can talk about maybe stripping stuff away and adding this kind of thing if the initial model is really successful. But again, I think for something like this, you just go for photo reference because find a human that has proportions close to this. It shouldn't be too hard. Right. Next up, we've got Courtney. Let's take a look. So yeah, this is all right. You've kept it pretty rough in these drawings. Um, but we kind of get the basic idea. Let's take a look at some of your other sketches. So yeah, slightly different body shape on this one from the rougher ones. I think that, kind of need to work out some of the eye and nose stuff here. It's not necessarily looking consistent with the other views, and also not necessarily that three-dimensional. So I think you might benefit from, looking at some photo reference. And I understand the eyes are sort of oversized and stylized, but they still look, they're not kind of integrating with the head that well there. And yeah, fleshed out nose thing. So yeah, this is another one where I think that you might want to use some photo reference and kind of go from there. Again, it's not, the body shape from what I can see is not too stylized. So if you can find a real human that you like the body shape of, that matches the look you're going for, that's going to, make this easier and give you some better reference. This is a better, somewhat more consistent look at the head you're going for. And it's, so again, to me, it seems like mostly what we've got here is, it's kind of like a little bit of that Disney 3D character style. I'm thinking of, for example, the characters in Frozen, which have the larger eyes and this kind of nose shape. Let's do like a quick search for Anna from Frozen. That's kind of what that reminds me of. That kind of subtle sloping nose and the big eyes. Looks like you're doing something pretty close to that. And she has somewhat stylized body proportions, but not too far off, realistic. So that's where you could just, again, go from real photo, and then, you might even use, well, look at the, so a Rapunzel, very similar. Like kind of look they've got going here, the really big eyes and so forth. So, maybe take a look at some of those Disney things more closely. You can even use those as reference for your model as well to get that stylized face. And as far as hair, just try to break it down into, as few pieces as possible, like maybe one big piece for this side, one big piece for that side, one big piece for the ponytail, maybe another piece for this hanging down, and just model kind of chunks of hair. So, did I miss anything? And these are just, it looks like stuff that you've just pulled up. Yeah, okay, then that's a little bit more. That looks like pretty close to some of the sketches you were doing. So, and that is more stylized and less realistic human. I think the kind of, just because it looks like the limbs are kind of skinnier than normal human limbs. And then you have that kind of Disney looking face to me. So if that's what you're going for. But again, you might still start with photo reference and get it close, and then once you have the basic structure down, you could go in and sort of, push and pull in areas to get it more stylized, and then, have the fundamental human proportions, and then you can kind of play around with them afterwards. It might be a good strategy. But overall, it's good that you've done a few different drawings. I think, could put a little bit more care into the body ones, getting like a consistent one, because I wouldn't model from, for example, this or that. They're not consistent enough or detailed enough to work from in their current state here. So, and that's, but I think it's, what I can see is that you put a lot of thought into this, and that's good. So, but that's what I'm saying. If you can find a photo reference that is close enough to the body type, then I would go for that. Next up is Ceili, and yeah, this is good. It's very stylized, but I think it could work well. Some people brought up the kind of pointy legs. I'm not concerned about that. I think it won't be a problem for the rig. I think that, yeah, you could model the shapes and then just paint on the clothing, it being pretty skin tight. You've got this sort of somewhat angry expression here. Just make sure when you model it, you model the mouth and any of this stuff in a more neutral pose to start with. Um, I think I would work out the hands are a bit small, and that's okay. But I might work out some more detail, and of course you won't model it where they're facing this way. You'll want the palms facing towards the floor, so you would only see the hands from the side in this point of view, from the thumbs forward from the side. So you could do like another study, like maybe from above, of what you want the hands, or maybe this is the study from above, and you'll just rotate it when you model it. Yeah, pretty clear shapes. I might do more for, getting the thigh and then form. Don't have this second leg there. That's just distracting. I might kind of cut that out, but then consider having a little bit more of the thigh come into the back of a knee and a knee shape here. It helps with the model and the rig if there's a clearer knee shape. Um, yeah, but for the most part, this is actually looks pretty doable. It's clean, clear, simple, stylized, and should work. I think some of the facial features leave some questions that you'll have to work out when you get into 3D. Sort of, looks like you're trying to say there's some significant cheekbones here. So I think like some other sketches of the head, maybe a three-quarter view of the head would be helpful. Also with a neutral facial pose, you probably benefit from that. But yeah, it's a good look, and could be a fun model to work with. The other thing I might add actually is to make sure there's a distinct shoulder shape and kind of underarm to it. And right now it just kind of, the arm just sort of sticks out of the body without any kind of shoulder. So I would get a shoulder in there as well. Next up is Crystal. And yeah, this looks good. I think that the face has kind of a nice style to it. Again, going for a somewhat cartoony look. The hands look a little bit big to me for the proportions of the rest of the arm. If that's the hand and wrist there, and so I think what needs to be worked out a little bit is the kind of the elbow and the forearm. I think this whole area could use another pass. And again, use some photo reference for that, because right now this is looking, again, for the size of the rest of the arm, the wrist and hand, it's almost like there's very little forearm here at all. Um, yeah, and I think to me the legs are looking bit short maybe, but probably okay. But as I've mentioned in a few other ones, if you can get a little bit more going on with the front of the knee and the back of the knee there, I understand that she's wearing pants and that you won't see that as much, but I think you would see a little bit more of a kneecap shape and maybe a little bit more of the pants coming in behind the knee there. The shoe design looks good, although if we don't see that much of it with bell bottoms, we don't necessarily have to do that much of it. But that looks like it could work. So yeah, main thing: arms, photo reference, and then knees, and this should be working well, and hands. Next up is Deborah. Um, yeah, so it's a good concept. One thing to think about is to when you model it, you'll have the ears straight up and the facial stuff consistent. And then you can, you'll add expression and bends and stuff later. You mentioned that you'll need to work out the hands, and maybe you just want to give them human hands, but just then make it a little thicker. So you could get some human photo reference and then model that, and then just make them thicker. Or you could go for an animal paw, but I guess I would be inclined more towards human hands. And yeah, the feet would be facing forward here rather than to the side. Um, yeah, I think that you could do a little more on the face too, because I just think there's a lot to work out here, and I don't think there's enough detail to model from. So maybe you want to either take another pass at drawing it or find some other drawn or photo reference that you want to work from. But I think as you have it, there's not necessarily enough information here to model from for the. Regarding the ears, I think they're pretty doable. There was a from last semester. There was a student that a very different style rabbit character, but it was pretty successful in its own way. It was more of like an action hero type character, and I had made this tutorial, which I've embedded here that you can take a look at just to give you an idea of how you'll do the ears later on. So you can take a look at that if you want now. But yeah, ears are doable. It will be some extra steps, but not too bad. Yeah, so but in summary, I think that you will have to, either by getting photo reference or other drawn reference, you'll need more information to successfully model this character than what you have right now. But it's a fun and interesting design. Here's Nadia. Yeah, this is really good. I'm liking that you've got, arms outside and by the sides, and I really like that you have a three-quarter view for reference, so you're thinking this out. I think Steven brought up the kind of lean here that you'll want to straighten out, and that's the kind of thing you can just fix in Photoshop, but you will want to straighten that out before you start modeling. Let's take a little closer look at this. Um, yeah, I think this should work well. You might want to do, typically, I say to model with the palms facing down rather than facing front. But this will be good reference anyways to, get the shape of the hand. So you could just kind of use that to model from above or below. Um, I think you will want to do some kind of horizontal lines here to do a few checks. Like when I look at the hips here, they look kind of a little lower than there, and just sketch those lines in and just make sure straighten this out and get everything lined up, and it'll be better to work from. But I think overall this is good. Don't try to do the legs under the pants here. Just do the pants themselves, which will in some them be the legs, and then do the shirt, and then the arms can just be separate and kind of overlap just as far as you can see in here. I think he could use more of a shoulder here. Would you benefit from more of a shoulder shape? Just because when your arms are up at their side, you definitely see a little bit more of the shape of the shoulder. But yeah, it looks good, workable. I think yeah, again, get those lines in because there's some inconsistencies from the side view to the front and three-quarter and the face. So you might want to straighten some of that out. But yeah, looks like a good and usable character. Next we have Ian. So yeah, it's a kind of good, creative, and interesting character. First thing I'm noticing is that it does not look consistent front and side. So you'll want to do a version where they look the same. Yeah, again, I keep talking about the lines here, and Yeah, I mean, you've gotten into some of these accessories, I think focused a little bit more on some of the basic shapes, as I've been saying with others, getting the shoulders in. You could do things like, having the hips more narrow than the shoulders, or you could go the other way and give it kind of a rounder middle shape. And then, yeah, there's not like a clear sort of thigh, knee, ankle. Um, and I think the hands could use a little more work. I'm not quite clear on how the kind of face and head transitions into this sort of leaf shape. I guess it sort of shows it there. Um, so yeah, I think you could you know think about a little bit more about just the basic shapes that it's based on. Because right now you have these kind of very linear sort of blocky things, but we don't have a sense of thigh, knee, calf. You've got a little more of that here, but we need shoulder. So I think you could use a pass at this where you have a little bit more sense of the basic body shapes, and then kind of fit some of the more things like the vest and the shorts over those basic shapes that could be fleshed out a little bit more. But it's a good creative design. As I mentioned before, model the mouth in a more neutral pose. Um, yeah, and I think that you really I would take another pass at the drawing here, or get some reference from a character you like to build the basic shapes, because with the inconsistencies of the front and side, I would not try to model the character with the drawings you have right now, because the front and side's too inconsistent. And again, like as I mentioned, you can use more work on some of the basic shapes of the body to give it um, some more definition and some more character. So Pierre, this is yeah, some really nice drawings here. Um, I like that you've done sort of a character study in the three-quarter view. That's good, and that answers sort of a lot of question about the shapes. Um, I think the face is human enough that it's going to work out okay. I like the hands you've got going here. When you'll do the tail, you'll do it straight, and then you can add in bones to bend it the way you want. Um, I think that I think this is okay. I think you need to make a bit more of a clear decision here of whether you're going cat legs or human legs on it. I can see that the toes give it that kind of paw look, but with animal legs, you have that kind of backward bending knee look to them. So when I look here and up to about there, it's looking like, the kind of normal thigh calf thing. And then here it just doesn't necessarily look clearly worked out. So I think it's important to go pretty more clearly cat leg or clearly human leg. My bias would be to go human leg and go ahead and give it those sort of paw-like toes as you have, so it has that character. Like when I look at this drawing with the foot sort of flat on the ground and kind of a clear ankle and a calf forming here, that to me reads as human leg with paw toes. So that's kind of what I'm going from. But then I look on the side, it looks like you may be going for more of the cat leg. So I'm leaning more towards this. So just do kind of the human leg, give a clear knee, give a clear calf, give a clear ankle and heel, and then add the paw toes. But yeah, nice drawings, and it looks like you have a pretty clear vision for where you're going, and that's going to be good for this. And it's got a lot of style and character to it. It's a good drawing. So yeah, ultimately I think this will work well. You just kind of have to work out the decisions on the legs. Byron, here's Byron's, and what's nice here is you can see that here's the original and here's the updated one. So, a lot of attention to making sure the proportions are correct. You would see the boots from the front, not from the side. Um, and I think you'll want to do maybe another sketch of the hands, maybe from above, but very appealing look to the character. I can see you've gone still with a pretty simplified face, but somewhat less so. Not exactly sure how we're gonna do these eyes in 3D. Um, I'm sure it's doable, but I don't have a. Maybe you want to do a three-quarter view drawing of the face to kind of work some of that out. I think again a bit as I've been saying with many of these, getting a little bit more of a clear shoulder shape in here will benefit you and will help it when the arms have to go back by their side. That was built in there. But yeah, this is yeah, marked improvement on this one, and it's a very appealing character. So I think you have something good to work from. Um, there will be some things to work out, and I think you would benefit from either photo reference or another sketch of the hands with the fingers, pointed out straight. But yeah, it looks good. It's going to be good to work from.